We have reached the final day of Newsmakers Week 2025 here on Arizona Sports. It is our pleasure to welcome in Arizona Cardinals General Manager Monti Ossenfort joining us in studio on this Friday morning. Monty, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. As always, we appreciate it.
Awesome, guys. Great being in here. Exciting time, gearing up for the Combine next week, but appreciate you guys making time to have me in today.
Our pleasure.
How's the offseason gone for you so far?
It's going good. It's going good. Off-season is a little bit of a misnomer because we stay rolling pretty good. Our staff was out at the East-West game down in Dallas and then rolled that right into the Senior Bowl in Mobile. And then we followed that up with a week-long set of draft meetings with our college scouts, finished with pro scouting free agency meetings, and then just finished with our coaches yesterday. So, we've been going pretty good here since the end of the season, and then that'll keep going next week with our trip out to Indy for the Combine.
All right, one of the many good things that you've done, there was a time when the Cardinals turned to aging stars to try to get better. A.J. Green, Terrell Suggs, Emmitt Smith. There's a whole handful of them. You've kind of flipped that paradigm on its head, and you've got a lot of young players on this roster. In fact, I read somewhere you've got 60 dudes under contract, and the average age is 25 and a half. Is that by design, and what does that mean for the health of a football team?
Yeah, Big. I think that was one thing that we had to do when we first got here. Is we had to get an identity. We had to form a core, and so we're always going to be a draft and develop team. And so we've had a lot of young players here these last 2 years, and it's shown. We've got a lot of young players, a lot of snaps, and they played a lot of good ball for us. And there with that comes challenges. It comes opportunity. So our team has to learn, and they're growing together. And we are one of the younger teams in the NFL. I think. The last time I checked at the end of the season, we were maybe the fifth youngest team in the NFL. And, by design, I think it was more so just trying to form that core of the team moving forward. We have good veterans that are sprinkled in there with Buddha and James Conner and Beach and guys like that help and provide leadership. But, that young core, forming that the last 2 years, that's very important. It's important in the salary cap day and age of forming the majority of your team through that, and that's something that we're going to continue to do and continue to believe in.
You mentioned, Monty, getting ready for the Combine, and that's coming up, but I wanted to go back and reflect on 2024, and I think you also mentioned the offseason being so packed for front office types like yourself that you can't really reflect that much. But when you do reflect on 2024, there was a lot of good. The ending was not what anybody wanted. What sticks with you when you reflect on 2024 that really motivates you moving forward?
Yeah, Vince, I think I've done a little bit of that here these last couple of weeks. And so, we were sitting there at the bye, week 10, week 11, sitting 6-4, tied for first place, and we were in a great position. And, the end of the season didn't go the way we wanted, and that was frustrating. And so we look back at that and, we're like, what went wrong? What happened? And so we look at that and, being able to step back from it now and seeing that, 3 or 4 of those games were one-score games, and that's what this league is. And so the first half of the year, we were able to win some of those games that came down to the last snap. And, you look at the games this year, the Minnesota game, the Carolina game, the Rams game that literally was the last play of the game, like those. And so they're one-score games, and it's a thin line in the NFL. But, as we look back on it, taking a step back, we did do good things. Like we doubled our win total, and that's relatively unheard of in the NFL. And to win 5 of our last 6 games at State Farm Stadium, I think that showed growth in our team, and it shows growth in where we're going. And so, the ending definitely disappointed. It's not where we want to be, and it's not where we want to go. But I do think taking a step back, there was good things, and the ability to play young players and have them continue to grow. I think that's going to only help us moving forward.
Your quarterback, Kyler Murray, remains very, very polarizing here in the Valley. I think organizationally, you guys have done everything you can to sort of nurture that relationship and grow him as a quarterback. What do you make of his late season struggles? From your vantage point, what boxes does he have to check to finish these seasons as well as he starts them?
Yeah, and I think Bick, with that, I think it's really the same thing with our whole team. Is we have to, just what you said, we have to finish. And so there was those tight games that, hey, was it only Kyler? No, there was other things that the rest of the team could do. Does Kyler have to play better? Absolutely, he does. So we talk about it all the time. Keys to our team is we don't want to turn the ball over and we want to make explosive plays. And so when Kyler was doing those things and contributing those things, he was rolling, he was humming, and we saw what that could be. And then when those games get tight and we turn the ball over and Kyler's involved in some of those, like that's where it's going to get tough to win. And it's going to get tough to win late in the season when the window of opportunity just shrinks. And so, that's a hump that we have to get over. And so Kyler has to improve on that. Our whole team has to improve on that. We have to raise our level of consistency. But we've seen what that looks like when Kyler is humming, what he can do with his arms and with his arm and his legs, and the pressure and the stress that he puts on a defense. And so we have to find a way to not only Kyler but the rest of our team even out those ups and those downs, so that we can come out on the right end of those close games, especially late in the season.
Marvin Harrison Jr. was another player that got a lot of talk from the moment you drafted him at number 4 overall. Came in, if you look at the overall numbers, 8 touchdown passes, really good. 885 yards, you'll take that from a rookie anytime. I think we can all agree there was some peaks and valleys for Marvin in his first year. What did you make of his rookie season? What does he need to do better? And what do you say to the critics out there that, quite honestly, I'm sure you heard it, the word bust came up a couple times during the season. What do you say to those people?
Well, I think we couldn't be happier with Marvin. Okay, Marvin, you said it. Like the guy scored touchdowns for us. The guy was our second leading receiver behind a tight end who had a historic season, Trey McBride. And so, are there things that Marvin has to do better and has to improve on? Absolutely. And he's, I think the encouraging thing about Marvin is every day that I've been in the office every day since the season ended. It hasn't been a day that's gone by that Marvin's not in there. Marvin is wired to improve. Marvin is a football player. So, absolutely there's things that Marvin and, Marvin, Kyler, the rest of the offense, like they're going to continue to grow that relationship. But, what Marvin brought to our offense and what he was able to do as a rookie. I mean, you can compare his numbers to, some of the greats that have been in this franchise, that the same that they did in their rookie season. So, I think some of those expectations out there, a little overblown and
Sure.
what those, come into. But I'll tell you what, Marvin means a lot to our team, and he's only going to go get better.
Yeah, I would think that there was a lot of good stuff last year, but I think there was a lot of ceiling obviously left for him to reach going forward, which I think would be a reason for optimism. When you take a look defensively, you've got a team like the Rams who nailed a couple of rookie defensive players and immediate impact. We talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. and about how he's going to continue to grow. Darius Robinson, what do you expect from him in year 2, and how does he get there?
Yeah, Darius is another guy who he went through a lot of trials and tribulations his first year. Like he had a great. We were very excited about him coming out of training camp, and he was great in the month of August, and we were excited about what he was going to do for our defense. And then I don't know what it was, the Wednesday before our first game, going to Buffalo, and just a freak calf injury. That calves are brutal injuries, and they're hard, and they're a hard rehab, and you never quite know if they're back ready to roll. And so Darius dealt with that. He dealt with some personal things in his life, and so for Darius to basically miss most of his rookie year and miss that practice time and miss that development, and then for him to battle back, and it was great to get him out on the field to at least get him a feel for what the speed of the game was going to be. But I know Darius was battling. Darius was battling through it. So we're excited to get him a reset. And he's another guy who's been in the building. He's working. He's training. And really, the importance for him is to just get a reset from what last year was. And really excited to the guy that we drafted and the versatility and this disruption and the length and the physicality that he brings, that he can bring to our defense. Just really looking forward to what that can do in his second year.
Wanted to squeeze in one more before the break because we got Monty for 2 segments.
Nice.
You mentioned Trey McBride, historic season. His development has been remarkable. One of the most reliable guys in the league at his position. What does he mean to this team moving forward? And I know a lot of fans are wondering when that contract extension's coming up for Trey.
Yeah,
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Trey is, he's everything we want in this program to be. And so, Trey's, we'll deal with his contract situation here as it comes up. But, what Trey does for us on the field, in the passing game, in the running game, I think that's an underrated component of, the tight end is a vital component in our offense, and just the stress that puts on a defense, the ability to threaten as a receiver and also contribute as a blocker. And then, I think what Trey means to us off the field, I think Trey is in the mold of the guys that we we've wanted to be a part of this program. You can put him in the bucket with Buda and James Conner and Fro and Zaven Collins, guys that do things right on and off the field. And so, Trey's a great person. Trey's a great player, and Trey's a guy that I want to be around our program for a long time going forward.
Monti Ossenfort, the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, in studio with us for a second segment as we continue Newsmakers Week 2025. Let's look to the future. You said you're getting ready for the Combine in Indianapolis. 6 draft picks at your disposal this year, number 16 overall in the first round. I think, it's a time, we always talk about this every year. There's not a sporting event on the calendar that gets more talk about it than the NFL draft, just because of the lead up after the season. So everybody's got their idea of what the Cardinals need. What do the Cardinals need through your eyes, the guy who's calling the shots?
Yeah, well, we need good football players, and so I think we're in a little bit different situation than we have the last 2 years, and picking 16 this year, it's harder to predict who's going to be available at 16. The last 2 years that we were initially at 3, and then last year we were at 4, and so we had a better idea. We could narrow it down. It's going to be 1 of 3 players available, 1 of 4 players. Now it's now I think this draft more than any other, I don't think there's a lot of consensus. I mean, even, there's a lot of talk about quarterbacks, and when the quarterbacks aren't clear cut, that makes everything else up in the air. And so, I think for us, the challenge is we got to be prepared for anything. And I don't think it's a situation where, hey, we're going to zero in and say, this is the position we're sitting on at 16, because a lot can happen to us in front of us. And opportunities to, we got to be ready to opportunities to move up, opportunities to move back, don't know who's going to be there. And so when we don't know what exactly is going to happen in front of us, we just have to be prepared for anything. So overall, I think, just where we're at as a team, I don't think there's one position that we can say, hey, like this can't help us. We just have to be prepared to react to what happens in front of us.
I know there was a strategic element to your build out from when you got here. There were times, especially when you were 6-4 last year, when I wondered if the unspent salary cap space that you had available to you that you didn't use was a source of regret to you. I guess what fans want to know now, and you're right about free agency, the downside of it is you're guaranteed to overpay. It's part of the definition of it all. But fans are curious, is this the year that financially there is going to be an all-in kind of mentality?
Well, I think with that, I think every time that we have a decision to make, and when it comes to roster building, free agency is a big one. Free agency and the draft are 2 of the biggest roster building tools that we have, and they're coming up here. They just happen to be back to back in the season. And so, yeah, we have cap space this year. We do. We have the ability. It gives us flexibility to go out there and see what makes sense for building our team. But I think with everything is there has to be it has to be done with the right judgment. And you said it, Bick. Like free agency, it's an overpay because it's a market, and it's not like you walk into a store and say, hey, this costs $10. Well, there's 5 other people that may want that item, and all of a sudden the $10 item becomes $15. And does that mean that the $10 item is all of a sudden better than that use? That's just what the market says. And so, and free agency, it's tough because we can't pick up the phone and call Team X and say, hey, tell me about this guy, because we don't know if that team wants to keep him, how they value him. And so there's a lot of challenges that come with free agency. And so we are going to be active in free agency. We absolutely are, but we're going to be smart about it, because every decision that we make, you sink resources into one area, it affects the other areas of the team where you can't put resources into other areas. So absolutely, we're going to be active. We're going to look for every avenue to improve the team. But we have to be smart about not only this year's team as we build for the future, and play our own players that we've talked about that we want to extend. That all goes into it. And so it's not as simple as saying, hey, let's go on a shopping spree. It's got to be measured. It's got to be the right decisions. It's got to be right for the team now and into the future.
One of the other avenues, obviously, is trades. And I won't ask about a specific player. People read the headlines about what's going on. Does it make sense to go down that avenue right now for the Arizona Cardinals, to give up premium draft capital to get an established mega superstar to join this roster?
I think that really depends on the situation. It depends on the player. It depends on the cost. But I think we will, I think we've shown that we're not averse to trading picks for players. We'll look into every avenue that makes sense and helps to improve our team. And then you just have to make that decision. You have to make that decision, as with anything. Hey, do the resources of that trade and that player is going to cost? That's going to affect building other areas of the team. And so in some instances, that's going to be worth it. Other instances, it's going to affect the other part of the team too much. And so absolutely, we're going to look into every avenue to improve our roster. And if the right situation presents itself, we won't shy away from striking.
All right, so it was weird because across football, there seemed to be really varying viewpoints on how your offensive line performed last year. What are your thoughts?
I thought our offensive line played well. I think for us to be able to run the ball like we did, really from the start of the year to the finish of the year, for us to control that, like that's not easy to do as the season goes on. Pass protection, I think with pass protection there comes some. We had some moving parts in there with Jonah Williams getting hurt and then working hard to come back. Beach stepping in there and playing when he did. Will Hernandez going down. A rookie, Isaiah Adams, stepping in there, and then we had some guys that were in there wire to wire. I think for that group to play the way they played, but I thought our offensive line played well. Was there things that we can do better? Absolutely. There is. And I think with that group growing together and continuing to ascend, but I think our offensive line as a whole played well together from the start of the season to the finish.
Going back to the evaluation process for the draft, I'm curious, you and your staff, when you consider all the elements, what do you prioritize? I mean, there's game tape, obviously, on all these prospects. There's combine workouts. There's interviews. What's the most important part of that for you when you're evaluating a prospect?
Vince, it is always going to come back to the tape. It's always going to come back to the college tape. And so, when we look at trying to paint the picture of what a player is, and we have a lot of tools that go into that. Obviously, I just said the college tape is the vast majority of that. We just got done with the All-Star game process, saw players put in different competitive situations. We're going to get a chance. We've started the interview process with players. We'll continue that next week at the Combine. So that's part of it, just understanding the personality, the mental makeup, how smart the player is. I think an undervalued part of it is the medical. The medical is a huge part of what goes into these players. Like there could be a really good player, he's got a medical issue, that it's going to be a short-term player. And so I think all of those things go into what we try to do this time of year. We're at the next step of it. The Combine can fill in a couple of those holes here going forward. But in the end, where we sink most of our resources, most of our time, that has really started our evaluation of this year's draft class really began last year, the day after last year's draft. Our scouts have been working on this year's draft class. And so it's been a long process to get here. We're the finish line is near. We still got a little ways to go, but a lot goes into that, and the college tape being paramount in our evaluations.
Are you worried at all about losing any key pieces? Primarily a guy like Kaiser White, who your defensive coordinator named his son after.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we got a lot of free agents that we would like back, and so those discussions will happen here in the next couple of weeks. Certainly we have guys like Kaiser's one of them. Was a team captain for us the last 2 years, but he's one of many free agents that we're going to have discussions with, and that goes to that point of trying to get that marketplace, and there's going to be 31 other teams that are trying to get these guys too, and so that's going to be a challenge for us as we try to build our team for the 2025 Cardinals, and so those are guys that we certainly will want back on our team.
Monty, that was a quick 2 segments.
Yeah, you're
covered
fantastic,
a lot of
man.
ground. Thank you so much for coming in. Always good to visit with you, and best of luck this offseason.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Monti Ossenfort, the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals.
Thanks for watching Bickley and Marotta. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.